Today I'm going to be showing you a recipe for crispy seasoned tofu. This recipe is relatively easy and ridiculously tasty. For ingredients, you'll need a block of extra firm tofu, cornstarch, salt, and pepper. You can optionally use garlic and onion powder, and you can also use MSG if you want. You'll need a cutting board and knife, as well as a plate to season the tofu on. And this is a pan-fried recipe, so you'll need some frying oil. I use canola. Start off by draining and removing the tofu from its package, and then setting it onto the plate. I'm going to show you how I press the tofu to remove a bit more liquid. This is totally optional, I just find that I prefer the tofu to be a bit drier in the middle, and this helps with that. I center a cutting board on the block, and then place a heavy skillet on top. Anything that weighs a couple of pounds will work. Check in a minute, and if the weight is off center, slide it back to the middle. With a heavy skillet, the press only needs to last about 5 minutes to draw out a lot of water. Place your tofu on the clean, non-skillet side of your cutting board and dump the water off your plate. Then, pat the plate dry. This is our seasoning surface, and we want the cornstarch to stick to the tofu, not the plate. Now it's time to cut the tofu. You can cut it into the size of your liking, but I'll walk you through the cuts that I use to make something that's perfectly sized as finger food and has a great ratio of crispy crust to soft center. First, cut it in half long way so it's thinner. Then cut it into about 2 sections in the shorter part of the rectangle, and then finally 3 sections in the longer part of the rectangle. This gives 12 pieces in total. Now we make the seasoned coating. I want to note that I use a lot of cornstarch because I like to have a slightly thick coating before frying, but we'll get to that. For now, just know that you can use a lot of cornstarch like I do, or you can use less, and you'll want to change your seasoning amount based on that. With my amount of coating, I use a heavy shake of salt and like 20 plus cranks of black pepper, as well as healthy pours of garlic and onion powder. If you use a lot less coating, you'll want to scale those back. Ultimately, remember that you're seasoning both the block of tofu and the cornstarch, so be liberal with the seasonings. And if you want to add something like MSG powder, feel free. Now take a fork and thoroughly mix the seasoning into the cornstarch and spread it around kind of evenly on the plate. Now we coat the tofu. I'm showing my full process for this first clip. I take about 4 pieces at a time and set them out in the cornstarch mixture. I then flip them around by hand so all sides are covered, including the shorter, thinner sides. I then lightly knock off any excess cornstarch so it doesn't fry up too clumpy, but honestly this is optional. If you want a really thick coating with craggly bits sticking out, you can keep a hefty dusting layer on. For mine, with a mildly but not strongly thick coating, I do a little wipe off as shown here. In the end, my tofu looks like this after coating. Repeat until all pieces are dusted. With all pieces ready, set up your pan for a shallow fry. I have a large skillet that can fit all pieces at once, but you can use a smaller skillet and cook in batches if needed. First, put the skillet over medium heat and add enough oil for a shallow pan fry, as shown here. And once the oil is hot, carefully set the tofu pieces into the skillet, spreading them out just enough so they don't touch and stick together, which will complicate flipping. We let this first side sit for about 3 minutes, which gives it time to release from the pan so it doesn't stick and also sets up the perfect situation for delicious browning and crisping. My stove heats a little unevenly, so I come in after about 90 seconds and rotate the pan. This might not be an issue for you. After those 3 minutes, give a couple of pieces their first flip. The bottom should already have some browning and look crispy. If not, flip them back and wait another 1 to 2 minutes. When yours look like mine, go ahead and flip all of them. And be careful not to burn yourself. I again rotate my pan after 90 seconds because of the uneven heat. And after 3 minutes on this side, or once the tofu looks crispy on the bottom like it does on top, it's time to flip the pieces onto one of their long, thin sides. Since these sides are thinner, I also slide the pieces towards the middle of the pan a bit where the heat is even. These thinner sides don't need quite as long, so after 2 minutes I come and flip onto the other long, thin side and again rearrange in the middle. After a couple of minutes on this side, cooking is done. It's optional to specifically fry the short, thin sides. I usually don't, and I don't necessarily recommend it unless they look raw. I use a wire rack to hold the tofu up and prevent it from steaming on a surface while letting excess oil drip off, and you can either use this, or you can set the tofu onto a plate with a paper towel on it. That will also capture excess oil and help prevent steaming. The tofu is still hot, but here, listen to this. It is ridiculously crispy. It's going to be so delicious once it cools down. I've let the pieces cool for about 3 minutes now, and honestly, that's not enough. It's still very hot on my fingers, but also honestly, I don't care. I take my first bite, and it's incredible. Crispy and well seasoned with a pleasant chew in the middle. My mouth is burnt, and I recommend that you wait longer than I did, but again, I don't care. I'll take the burn and power through so I can keep eating this deliciousness. I usually eat about 6 pieces per sitting, corresponding to half a block of tofu. The rest go into the fridge. And that's it. This is a staple recipe in my kitchen. My partner and I love these, and it impresses whenever we have company over as well. These keep okay in the fridge, reheating best in the skillet, but honestly, they're best day one, so I recommend you find someone you really like or want to impress and share these with them. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment below describing your experience with this recipe or what you want to see next.